Introducing Lisa Marie Nicole, singer and songwriter and author in today's Christian entertainment media world.
Lisa Marie Nicole is one of the fastest rising Christian music singers out there, bringing a powerful punch and a Catholic message.
The winner of many awards on many platforms including Podcast of the Year, Song of the Year, Video of the Year and many more, she has to her credit 2 books, 7 albums and 40 published songs.
Her music is heard all over the world and she is performed in many places in the United States. Her music and books can be found at lisamarienicole.com, and her award-winning Rockin' for God podcast can be found on YouTube on the 4 Persons Network. We invite you to buy her books, Poetry for the Soul and The Christmas Stranger, and purchase and enjoy her many invigorating classic songs. While you're at it, catch her on YouTube on Rockin' for God. Lisa Marie Nicole, a rising force. Catch the star rising.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the 4 Persons. A lot later than I normally do a show. Eric, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, I think Eric's having... Hold on just one second. Can you hear me?
Hello, testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, I can see your response, so obviously you can hear me. I can't hear anything on my end, though. Let me see if I can switch to a different set. Hold on one second.
Okay. Testing, testing, testing. Can you hear now? Can you hear me now? It must be some kind of a setting.
Okay, now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, all right, great. We finally got it. The dreaded glitch.
The dreaded glitch.
How you doing? Eric Hanson is our guest tonight. We met online, I guess probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, right? That sounds
Yeah,
about
that's
right.
about right.
And you know, our paths kind of collided on the same mutual interest that we found online. Now, it has to do with this case of Mackenzie Shirilla. And, you know, going to be honest with you, neither one of us have ever met Mackenzie. I'm trying to close this video out. Hold on. Everything seems to be working against us.
Apparently so. At least I'm glad I'm not the only one having technical issues.
Yeah. It's there we go.
There we go.
Okay. So ever since I watched the video and did a video on this Mackenzie Shirilla case, it has been our biggest number one video by a large margin, because there's a lot of interest in this case. Now, neither me or Eric have ever met any of the parties involved in this situation. So, for those of you who are new to this, a little bit of a background. We'll go through a little bit of a background. In July of 2022, correct?
Correct.
There was a serious car crash in Strongsville, Ohio. And as a result of that car crash, there were 2 fatalities.
Correct.
Dominic Russo and Davion Flannigan were the names of the 2 persons. Now, the driver of the vehicle was barely clinging to life, and she was life flighted to a nearby hospital, where after multiple surgeries, she did survive. She showed one of the victims was her boyfriend, and she showed every sign of a person who was grieving, a person who was devastated by this terrible event and everything. And then around about November or December, things took a dramatic turn. Why don't you pick it up from there, and explain what happened at that point?
Yeah. So you got the facts correct so far. July 31st was this terrible automobile crash at 5:35 in the morning on July 31st. That did result in the deaths of Dominic and Davion. Fast forward through November 1st is when a witness came forward by the name of Christopher Martin, who he provided information to the police that kind of was the key linchpin of the of the case, something that they could finally move forward on. The information he provided to the police was that on 2 weeks prior to the crash, he responded to Interstate 71 to pick up Dominic on the side of the freeway because Dominic and Mackenzie had some kind of altercation in her vehicle. The altercation, she wanted him out of her vehicle, so she pulled over, told him to get out. This is where we have this he said, she said situation going on. She sent a barrage of text messages to the mother of her boyfriend, Christine Russo, and was asking, in fact, begging for help based upon the tone and language of the text messages, saying, "Can you come and get your son? He grabbed the steering wheel of my vehicle and either tried to spin it out and potentially crash the car too." That's my own observation based upon what her text message said. If he doesn't get out of the vehicle, I'm calling my dad, is basically what she said in a barrage of text messages. He reports this to the police, or excuse me, I should back up. She reports this to the police. And because Christine Russo was ill and unable to drive and pick up Dominic, she sent Christopher Martin. Mr. Martin, when he arrived at the site of where Dominic and Mackenzie were at on the side of the freeway, he stated that he saw Mackenzie strike Dominic across the face, and he claims he heard her say, "I will crash this car right now." And that was the key piece of information that the police needed to pursue charges.
Right.
On November 4th, Mackenzie was arrested coming back from a medical appointment for rehabilitation purposes due to the injuries she sustained in the crash. She was taken into custody, and has been incarcerated ever since. Fast forward to March of 2023, they hold what is called a probable cause hearing, also sometimes referred to as a bind-over hearing. Because Mackenzie was 17 years of age at the time of the crash, this is a legal requirement to potentially hold juvenile offenders over to an adult court based upon the seriousness of the offense. In the bind-over hearing, there were many, many witnesses for the prosecution. Mark Sargent, who works for a third-party investigative firm that investigates car crash, explosions, not so much explosions due to intentional explosive devices like C4 or
impact
stuff like that.
explosion.
Correct. But more of explosions like a propane tank exploded, and it's the insurance company is asking for an investigation. They would call his firm. His company examined Mackenzie's vehicle, found that in their determination it was in good working order up until the moment of the crash and impact. And so that was sort of the basis of the crash. In the investigator's mind, Detective Hazow, he stated in the bind-over hearing, he goes, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he said, when someone puts their foot on the gas pedal to the metal, that shows intent. Well, no, not necessarily. Not based upon my own research and my own investigation on this case. There is significant room for reasonable doubt in this case.
And I'm gonna
So
interrupt you right there.
Yeah.
Because folks, that's the gist of what we're talking about right here. That's the gist. That is the kernel of what we're discussing here and why this case has become so important for the both of us. That term that he just used, that famous legal term that we've all heard since we were juveniles, reasonable doubt. And so you take this hearsay that you're talking about, that you've heard, and these things that are said, this conjecture from this investigator that says, well, if the gas pedal is put down, that shows intent. All of this is conjecture. All that we know for a fact, based on the video evidence, is that the car turned right off of Pearl Drive onto Prospect Drive at approximately 35 miles per hour, and approximately 0.7 of a mile later, the car traveling at approximately 100 miles an hour impacted a building at the corner of Prospect and Alameda. That's all we know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
That's correct.
Now, there's all kinds of conjecture and theories and ideas about what caused that car to rapidly accelerate in such a short amount of time. And one of those causes and one of those theories is that Mackenzie did this intentionally. That's one of the, smorgasbord of ideas that are out there. Here's the problem. It hasn't been proven. It hasn't been proven. And without us knowing what actually happened in that car, how do you arrive at a double murder conviction? The judge basically surmised from 8 seconds of videotape that Mackenzie planned this out and willfully, intentionally killed 2 people. Now, you and I have studied the evidence, not only the testimony, the conflicts in the testimony, the fact that some of the witnesses seem to be, shall we say, compromised. Mr.
Yes.
Martin, for example, would not qualify. I mean, talk about where he was living.
So at the time of the incident on the 17th, 2 weeks before the fatal crash, he was residing at Christine Russo's home at the time. And of course, fast forward 2 weeks later, he is still residing there because there was no reason to move at that time. The longer version of Mr. Martin's history, however, and if you're okay with me telling you this, in 2011, he was arrested for carrying drugs. Now, he managed to participate in a alternative drug treatment program to avoid a criminal conviction and incarceration. Fast forward to 2018, he is arrested again, this time for carrying a firearm without a proper permit and for driving around town with that handgun on his hip, in a hip holster. He did not have the weapon secured in a container with the ammunition and the weapons separated from one another and in an area that a driver can't access. So in a locked case in the trunk, for example. During his 2018 firearm charges, he failed to show up for a court hearing, to which the presiding judge issued a capias warrant, which is another term for it, more commonly referred to as a bench warrant, for his arrest for failing to show up on time for this scheduled hearing. Eventually, a long story short, I'm just going to cut through the chase. Eventually, he pleads guilty to the 2 charges, and he is sentenced to 1 year probation with very strict restrictions on what he can do and where he can go, that type of thing. And this is to avoid incarceration because, according to court documents, he was the sole provider to his child that was under the age of 18. And so the court took sympathy, said, okay, he's the only provider, but here are the very strict restrictions. The interesting thing, however, is one of the people who assisted him from a legal standpoint was Christine Russo. And this is kind of one of those situations where it's like, excuse me, what lawyer in their right mind would allow a client of theirs to live in their house under the same roof? It's unheard of. Now, it would be a little bit more understandable if, say, she owned a few homes and she leased out one of the homes to him, but it was all business related. I'm the landlord, you're the tenant, that type of thing, but not your personal home, which is what he was doing. So when he comes in on November 1st, and this is the issue one of the many issues I have, and he gives this statement to the police saying, I heard Mackenzie make this statement to crash the car. He doesn't bring any supporting documentation or evidence with him. There's no audio recording of this alleged threat to crash the car.
Right.
There is no video of this alleged threat to crash the car. There's no video to show the alleged slap either. So you're asking me to believe a convicted felon, and you don't bring me any evidence.
Not only are you asking me to believe a convicted felon, but you're asking me to believe a convicted felon who is living in the home of the mother of one of the victims and could be somewhat compromised that way.
Yes.
So you're talking about not only a witness whose credibility is under question right from the start.
Hmm.
But a witness who might have a clear conflict of interest
Yes.
might feel that he has something to gain by testifying a certain way, or might feel threatened if he doesn't testify a certain way.
Correct.
So let me just throw out just a plausible situation.
Hmm.
If you want to continue to live here, you're going to play ball. You're going to say that you heard this or what have you. And I don't have any evidence. I'm throwing that out as a theory.
Right.
So my question to you, Eric, I want to
Hmm.
use this as a starting off point as to
Hmm.
one of the red flags that you and I have both seen in this case. Does Mackenzie's defense team present anything in the case to impeach the credibility of this witness?
So at trial, no. The attorney that represented Miss Shirilla Mackenzie was really an attorney in name only. Excuse me. He put on a nice suit and he said a couple of questions to a couple of witnesses, but he really did not put forth any effort. Um, Mackenzie herself, as part of her post conviction appeal process, um, she has stated in a sworn affidavit that she begged her attorney at trial to present evidence, specifically text messages that show a completely different story about um, what transpired on the 17th. Um, and he didn't do it. He does not do it. She asked for medical certification from a board certified doctor to come in to testify on her behalf, and he doesn't do it. And so part of her appeal was based upon ineffective counsel
Yeah.
because
And to go to really hammer the point of ineffective counsel, I want to ask you a question because nobody's been able to give me a sensible answer on this.
Mhm.
Why in the world did her defense team, did her lawyer decide to go to a bench trial rather than a jury trial? Because I would guarantee you, based on the evidence that's in this case, there is no way you get a unanimous guilty verdict among 12 people if this
Mhm.
goes to a jury trial. What were they possibly thinking when
I honestly cannot answer that question because even I don't know. I'm puzzled by that very question myself. It makes no sense. No lawyer in this situation would ever recommend a bench trial. It is inconceivable, really, why this was even offered. Um,
so I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you
yeah,
off, but this is an
no,
important point to make. You can only come to one of two conclusions. You you either come to the conclusion that this guy was a complete imbecile, okay? I'm sorry
mhm,
for being so blunt,
mhm,
or that he was compromised in some way, that he torpedoed her defense.
yeah. Um, both of them are extreme possibilities. It is. You could almost go either way with your analogy there.
Yeah.
Either he did it on purpose, or he's just that inept. I don't know. Reading through the transcripts of both the bind over hearing as well as the trial, I literally had to turn off the presentation and focus on something else because I was like, "You have got to be kidding me!" Because there are several questions that could easily be raised to some of the witnesses. One of the things that Mackenzie does have, and it's verified through two different sources, is a medical history of a condition called posterior orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. and they said, "Oh, this couldn't have happened." Well, I'm sorry, you didn't talk to a neurologist. It's a
Okay.
neurological condition.
I
So,
want to interrupt
yeah,
you again because
yeah.
these are just such important points that I
Hmm.
want to really hammer home. I want you to explain to me, like Ken, okay,
Hmm. Okay.
how this particular medical condition would cause a person to inadvertently, accidentally, uncontrollably push the accelerator to the floor. Explain to me how that would happen.
Okay. So, with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, it is a condition that increases a person's heart rate. Tachycardia is in the title. Now, for those who aren't familiar with medical terms, tachycardia is a form of an arrhythmia. An arrhythmia is an abnormal heart rhythm. Abnormal heart rhythms include um, brachycardia, which is a slow heartbeat, tachycardia, which is a racing heartbeat without, a reasonable explanation, like running a mile and a half, that type of thing. And then um, fibrillation, where the heart is sort of stuttering a little bit. This condition, when you look at the Cleveland Clinic uh, information on seizures, specifically tonic-clonic seizures, one of the triggers for this seizure can be an arrhythmia. So we now have a link between the two conditions. It's not guaranteed that you're going to have a seizure because you have POTS, but it does put you into an elevated category for having seizures. As far as the pushing down on the accelerator, when you look at either focal seizures or tonic-clonic seizures, both of them involve a stiffening of the body, specifically the limbs, arms and legs. Um, if you're sitting in a car and if you go to, I'm not sure what you're bringing up. Hopefully, uh,
Go ahead, finish your point.
okay, yeah. If you have one of these seizures, it can cause a unintended acceleration. In 2020, uh, Japanese neurologists in Japan studied patients who have a neurological condition and a predisposition to having seizures. They brought them in to conduct a study on seizures and driving ability. What they found, actually, let me back up before I give the results. Here's how they did the test. Obviously, if you have someone who has a seizure, putting them in a real live automobile and asking them to drive around a track would be considered extremely dumb, let's put it that way, and potentially life threatening. So, what they did is they used a simulator and they hooked the volunteer patient up to an EEG or electroencephalogram. This is a device that measures brainwave activity. They then had this test subject patient drive in a simulated automobile on a simulated track, and then they triggered seizures. Now, the results of this came out to be that while more further study is necessary, focal seizures, patients who experience focal seizures also experience sudden and unintended acceleration, no braking, and no steering input, which almost sounds exactly what happened in Mackenzie's case.
Mhm.
Um, so,
So
yeah,
let me demonstrate, okay, just for the
yep,
people who are watching.
hmm,
This was the path Mackenzie was coming down. She was coming down Progress Drive, okay,
yep,
and a building which, based on all the evidence that I've seen and put together, appears to be this building right here, had a camera mounted on the front of that building. So as
Correct.
you see, after this down pass here, you have just this very little short amount of straightaway. And in this point is where the car apparently began to rapidly accelerate.
Correct.
Okay. Now, putting your theory to the test, if that's what happened, this is the building that they impacted. Okay. The entire roadway here, all the way back off of Pearl Drive here, all the way down to the end, is 7/10 of a mile.
Correct.
So,
Looking at Google Maps, because this is one of the things I did factor in and looked
Mhm.
at, is when you drive Progress Drive between Pearl Road and Alameda Drive, if you go the speed limit, which is 35 miles an hour, Google Map tells you it will take you 60 seconds to travel from one end of the road to the other. Mackenzie's vehicle disappeared off camera at Pearl Road and Progress Drive and showed up and crashed into the building at 59 seconds. So almost the same time frame it would take to drive normally. Well, we know that her vehicle was traveling a lot faster, roughly 100 miles an hour. So that means there has to be a trade-off in order to maintain the same time limit, but not the same speed. This indicates that prior to appearing on camera, her car slowed down or even stopped. The question is why? This is probably where the medical emergency, in my opinion, began. And it begins with sort of a person not feeling, something's off. They don't understand why. They're not sure. In this case, if that happened, it would make sense that the vehicle would slow down. And then, based upon the seizure activity and seizure information from the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic, it is indeed plausible. Furthermore, based upon the information from one of the officers who testified at the bindover hearing, stated that when they approached the vehicle, because they were the first officers on scene, they found the two occupants who weren't secured, and that was Dominic and Davion, by seatbelts. Mackenzie partially was. The lower part of her body, her feet and legs and hip area, was on the driver's side with her foot still on the accelerator. The upper part of her body, head, arm, neck area, that was on the passenger side area, and her body was sort of draped over the center console. The vehicle was a 2018 Toyota Camry. That vehicle has a console in between the front passenger and driver positions. That is also where the gear shift lever is located. If Mackenzie was found in this position, and based upon the police information, that's how she was found, it leads me to believe that she was already in that position and laying on the center console at the time of impact. Here's the reason why. When the vehicle comes to a sudden stop, and if we remember our basic physics lessons, law of physics, anything in motion stays in motion until force is applied to stop the motion. Well, that stopping in the motion would be Mackenzie's vehicle hitting the building. She's partially restrained, but not all the way. So as the vehicle's slowing down, she's still moving forward, sliding along that center console.
That's your second impact.
Yep, sliding along the center console. The severe injuries that she sustained, and I'll explain what they were. The major one was a fractured C1 vertebra. For those of you who don't know where that is, it is the first bone directly in the neck, right below the skull. That takes a tremendous amount of force to break that, any part of it. The next injuries that she sustained were a broken right humerus, that's the upper arm bone from the shoulder to the elbow. She suffered a broken right femur, that's the large bone from hip to knee. She also suffered fractures to her 8th, 9th, and 10th ribs on her right side, as well as a lacerated liver. There are other injuries that she sustained, but those were the most severe. Those are something that could easily cause life-threatening injury and potentially even fatal if not treated appropriately. If Mackenzie was sitting upright, and I base this upon a video that almost replicates this type of a crash conducted by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety on a 2018 Toyota Camry. The two mannequins in that video show if it was a person sitting upright, they would move forward, but then they would move it forward slightly, but they would be locked in by the seatbelt tensioner in the seatbelts. These mannequins, they're only secured by the seatbelt in the video, in the car. Neither one of them goes off into the center console area. They are kept upright. But if Mackenzie was found laying on her side, draped over the center console, how did she get there? If it happened post-crash, like, I can't believe I survived that, or it was like, wow, that was a wild ride, and she just collapsed, she wouldn't have received the injuries like she did.
Right. So, if somebody's theorizing that she was thrown into that position by the impact,
Mm-hmm.
that's not consistent with the injuries that she had. The injuries that she had are consistent with her having been in that position at impact. Am I correct?
That's correct. And one question that someone asked me is, okay, what caused her neck to fracture if that was the case? If it wasn't caused by the motion of the vehicle. In a 2018 Toyota Camry, there is on the passenger side floorboard area right by the knee, so if you're sitting in the car and where your knees would be just before the dash, there is an airbag there. So if you take a person, you put them onto their side and their head happens to be near that airbag's pulling back, being deployed in a very rapid manner within milliseconds. If someone's head is right there, it's going to snap back, giving you a whiplash type injury, which is consistent to the type of injury that she sustained. That's why I am a strong proponent of Mackenzie having a medical condition at the time of the crash.
Right. There's other things here that
Yes.
are really funny or really bizarre. Okay,
Mhm.
so we've determined that this is most likely, do you agree, the building that had the camera mounted on it?
I can't see your cursor, so I'm not sure which one you're
Okay.
looking at.
So so you start here. This is the building that they impacted in. Go to the right, the second building, the building that's kind of at a 90-degree angle.
The one that says Albalon Industries?
Yes.
No, that is not the building. The building that it was is the one that says KLT Chemical Company.
So the first building.
The first building, right?
That makes my case even more. That what we're seeing there, the clip that we're seeing when she's passing that camera, her reaction time is like nothing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here's the thing. They testified in court, or basically said that she drove straight into the building. Well, completely false. And
It was a there was a turn that was registered. Yes.
yeah. So this is a close-up, folks. Okay, this is progress. This is Alameda. This is the building. Okay, that the car crashed into. Okay, the car crashed here. Can you
Yep.
see the cursor?
Yep. That's exactly where the car impacted.
This is
And
where
then
the car impacted. Well, that's
Yep.
almost 90 degrees. When
So
by the time the car gets into this field here, it has to make almost a 90-degree turn to impact that point. And as you stated, the vehicle diagnostic uh, data did indicate a hard right turn.
yes.
Well, Eric,
And yes.
how do you reconcile that
So
with this deal?
I reconcile that because there was Dominic in the front passenger seat.
Yeah.
It is entirely possible that he was the one that grabbed that steering wheel and he yanked it to the hard right turn in effort to perhaps avoid the impact or whatever. Maybe it was a last ditch
Yeah.
effort type thing.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why I say I believe this. One, if you're sitting in the passenger seat, and anyone can do this at home, get in the passenger seat of your vehicle. It doesn't have to be running or anything like that. You can just try this. Reach over, grab the steering wheel, and try pulling it towards you. It's always going to be easier to pull it towards you than it is to push it away. The other question is, well, what if he just grabbed the steering wheel under this hypothesis? Why didn't he just grab it from the bottom and make a hard left turn? If Mackenzie was unconscious and on the dashboard, it would make it very, very difficult for him to do that, to grab under from the bottom of the steering wheel and pull it. So if you pull it towards you, it's very, very easier versus trying to push it away. That's
And the
my
other
opinion.
thing, but the other thing, Eric, I made this point before, and I want to make it again because
Yep.
it's such an important point. If this is in fact where the camera was on this first building, you've got a 20th of a mile here. That's the distance you're talking about, a 20th of a mile at 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
Okay, you don't have a lot of time to think this through.
No.
You're good. It's one reaction and hope for the best. And that appears to be what happened. But in the court, they presented this as Mackenzie intentionally drove this car directly into the building. The other thing that's very troubling for me is that when they extracted her from the car, her foot was still stuck. Her shoe was still stuck, wedged between the gas pedal and the brake pedal.
Correct.
Okay. And the gas pedal was still to the floor, pressed to the floor.
Yes.
Now, if Mackenzie, we all know how an accelerator pedal works. If Mackenzie was intentionally pressing the accelerator to the floor, wouldn't it make sense that when she's extracted from the vehicle, it would bounce back?
So her slipper actually was stuck on the accelerator as well. So when they removed her from the vehicle, the her Prada slipper, I think it was Prada, stayed on the gas pedal. It stayed there because it kind of got stuck when the vehicle folded, or not folded, but there was a deformation, as they called it in the investigation, that caused enough, like a pinching type motion on the slipper. So the slipper stayed, and it indicated that her foot was still on the gas pedal. And yeah, like I said, it's just one of those details that's very, very bizarre because if this was intentional, there's usually also going to be a hesitation of kind of retracting your feet, tracting your legs from the locale to maybe avoid injury if this was an intentional act. Or if you're unconscious, you can't really do that. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that's
Explain what we're looking at here.
so what we're looking at is her slipper. The bottom of her slipper, where her heel would be, that is the part that's pinched by the deformation of the floor of the car. The gas pedal is directly behind it, and then the shoe, the slipper, is actually wedged under the brake pedal. Now, whether that happened when they were extracting her from the car or it happened during the crash, I can't say with any certainty, but it certainly does open up the opportunity that if her foot was indeed stuck and she can't get her foot out, how can you apply the brake?
And she can't get her foot out, presumably because she is having a medical episode. She's slumped over the console, having a medical episode. Meanwhile, her foot is stuck, pressing the accelerator to the floor, and all Dominic can do in reaction is grab the steering wheel and hope to avoid a collision, unsuccessfully,
Correct.
unfortunately.
Yes.
That scenario makes a lot more sense and seems a lot more in line with the evidence that we're seeing here than Mackenzie intentionally crashed this car.
Mm-hmm.
Not the evidence doesn't add up to that.
No, it does not. There was a lot of emphasis put on the mechanicals of the vehicle, like how much damage there was. And just looking at the initial police reports from this case, there was already some bias on the part of the police officers because of the terminology they're using, saying the vehicle was driving in a reckless manner. No, that's your opinion. Reckless manner means you have to prove intent for recklessness.
Right.
A more appropriate term is vehicle was traveling in excess of posted speed limit. That would be more appropriate. It
Right.
also said that the vehicle was, quote, torn in half. No, it was not torn in half. Everything from the firewall to the rear bumper was intact. The reason why is because people may forget about this until it's brought up. Automobile manufacturers, Ford, Chrysler, Chevrolet, they all create parts of the vehicle called crumple zones. These are areas of the vehicle that are intentionally designed to basically get destroyed in automobile crashes.
To absorb energy.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's designed to absorb that energy, and it's part of the overall safety system of the car. People only think of seatbelts and airbags. No, it's much more than that. It's the crumple zone. It's also the cage area. So when you think of how an automobile is built, whether it's unibody or body on frame, the A pillars, B pillars, and C pillars. A pillars are the ones that hold the windshield to the car. B pillar is the kind of where the door frame would be for the front door. And if you have a four-door car or a four-door vehicle, that would be the front door, rear door portion. Usually where the seat belt for the front passenger and front driver are seated. That's where the seat belt is secured to. And then the C pillar is behind in the back seat. This forms a frame. It forms sort of a roll cage and acts like a roll cage in a automobile crash. With the crumple zone, the cage, plus seat belt, and the supplemental safety systems, also known as airbags, those pieces all form the safety of the car. That's why the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety intentionally wrecks these cars so that automobile manufacturers can build a better, stronger, safer car. I am currently pulling up that Insurance Institute for Highway Safety so I can show you and send you the link or put it in the chat here so people can read it.
See if you can, if you're able to share the screen. Well, once you find it, let me know.
Yep. One second here. And it is a 1 minute long video. Let me see if I can present this
so
here.
Below where you see yourself on the screen, below there, you see the plus sign? You see a monitor with a plus sign on it? Down at the bottom?
All right. There we go.
Yeah.
I think everyone can see that. Can you see that?
Yeah. And well, you need the. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
There's this substantially what happened to Mackenzie's car?
Yep, because it was off center on the passenger side.
Hitting that corner that we pointed out to.
Correct. Now notice how the car is spinning in a clockwise motion.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly what happened in Mackenzie's case. Now here's the internal view. So as you can see, there's no leaning to the center console section by the mannequin in the driver's seat.
Even though the car is whipping around violently.
Yes, and that's because of the seat belt locking them into an upright position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back here real quick. Because I want to point something out to everybody here.
Mm-hmm.
And I got back just a tad too far, but that's okay. Okay, I'm going to pause that right here. This is just before impact. Here's the center console. This is what Mackenzie was laying, folded over, kind of just draped over it.
Mm-hmm.
If she was laying across this and only partially restrained, I want you to keep an eye on this space right here.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
That's the airbag.
Exactly what happened.
If her head was there, that would easily cause that type of a neck injury. So that's why I wanted to bring this up and show that to you. So yeah.
So why does Mackenzie not remember what happened? Was she actually in a coma at this point, or is there some other reason why she doesn't remember what happened?
So that's called amnesia. After the crash, she texted Angelo Russo, which is Dominic's brother. She said that she wished that she could remember what took place. She remembers making the turn onto Progress Drive, but doesn't remember anything else after that. that indicates amnesia. She doesn't remember anything until she was more lucid and pretty much at the hospital where she's starting to recover, and certainly a lot more um, lucid as compared to being in the back of the ambulance. In fact, in the back of the ambulance, she called out to a person that wasn't even in the car. The name was Jacob, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
She asked about the condition of Davion, and I'm not sure what police or medics told her at that time. But while being treated for her injuries in the back of the ambulance while waiting for the medical helicopter to come and take her and transport her to the hospital, she's not responding too well to just saying, "Hey, what's your name? What's this?" It took several times of prompting in order to get her to respond. She was closing her eyes a lot, and they had to kind of go, "Hey, Mackenzie, wake up, wake up. Hey, what's your name? What's your name?" That type of thing. Do you know where you're at? Things, the questions that paramedics would ask, the sample, signs, symptoms, things going through down the whole list of medical checks. Um, so yeah, the fact that she doesn't remember, and even to this day, according to documentation, she still doesn't have any recollection of what transpired
So,
after making that turn.
Eric, for someone who would say, well, it's very convenient that she doesn't, she's made up this story that she doesn't remember,
Yes.
it wouldn't really be in her interest to not remember.
Mhm.
Because if she remembered what happened in that vehicle, she probably would be able to give details that would lead to her being exonerated, right?
Correct. Correct. And the reason why I believe her on the fact that she doesn't remember anything after making that turn and until becoming more lucid while at the hospital is, if the scenario that I just showed involving the video, that type of impact is going to give a person a concussion, most definitely. You don't get that type of injury to your neck without at least a minor concussion, which can be as little as getting your bell rung. That's what some people will view it. Others, it's a lot more severe.
Well, I
You
mean,
look,
in the more severe case,
yeah,
that's basically the injury that killed Dale Earnhardt, right?
correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that was actually um, I'd have to look at his records, but yeah, it can be very, very fatal. In fact, look at a lot of the professional athletes out there who are involved in impact sports. Football players, some of them, you know, have to use a wheelchair. Muhammad Ali, if we remember Muhammad Ali,
Mhm.
later on in his life, well after his fighting career had ended, he was having tremors, and that was easily visible, and that was part of being hit in the head multiple times over a long course of a period of time.
Yeah. So now,
Why?
Eric, both of us, both of us believe in the rule of law.
Yes.
Okay. And if you were on a jury
Hmm.
and there was controvertible evidence shown that she did this intentionally, I'm
Hmm.
sure you agree with me that she should be sent to prison for life for
Hmm.
intentionally killing two people.
Yes.
And it's not a lack of sympathy of two victims because it clearly was a tragic, horrific, you know,
Hmm.
uh, situation. At the end of the day, though, when I look at the evidence, when I look at the lack of credibility of some of the witnesses,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, this doesn't add up to a double murder conviction to me. To
Hmm.
me, it looks like this person was denied justice. This person was convicted of a crime that she did not commit.
I view it based upon assumption and innuendo.
Yeah.
When I look at the video of the vehicle actually crashing, where that you showed, it doesn't tell me very much. I can tell you exactly what it does tell me. It tells me the date and time of when it took place. It was 5:30, 5:35 in the morning. Even though on the timer of the video camera it said 5:39. That's because there was a correction. The clock on that video was 4 minutes and 20 seconds ahead, and this has all been documented by the police and testified in court. So 5:35 and 24 seconds is when the vehicle impacted. What do I see? I see the condition of the street. It was dry pavement. It was not icy. It was not snowy. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't rainy. The lighting conditions, dark, but there's also, when you look at the video, there's a light closer to that camera, so that light is overpowering kind of the feed of the camera. When you look at the windows appear in black. That's because of the factory tinting, the polarization of the tinting, as well as the lighting conditions at that time. When you say this was intentional, you have to be able to prove, one, was she conscious at the time of impact? Two, was she aware of her surroundings at the time of impact? Was she aware of her actions at the time of impact? Was she of sound mind at the time of impact? Was she driving with intent at the time of impact? And was she in complete and total control at the time of impact? I need to be able to see what she is doing. I just cannot look at a video like that and say, oh yeah, that's definitely a crash. However, that's exactly what the police and the prosecution said is, well, the video proves it. You don't need to be an expert on this. The video proves it. Well, no, not necessarily. Because, and I'm going to see if I can pull up the video here real quick. And I'll share it here with my screen here once I have it pulled up. Sorry, 1 second. There is a crash that I am going to show you from August of 2023 in Garfield, New Jersey. If I can just get the video here. All right, and share screen. 1 second here. Okay. So this is the video I'm referring to here, and this took place. This was reported on August 16th, 2023. Ironically, the week after Mackenzie was convicted.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if that played quite right or not.
So explain to us what we just saw.
So what we are looking at is a video surveillance camera at this intersection. And we just saw, let me see if I can back it up real quick here. Here's my So we see a car that drove up onto the sidewalk, traveling at a high rate of speed,
Mhm.
It hits the traffic control signal, and there is additional video footage. I'm not sure if it's going to flip over here to the other side. Yeah, here it is. So this is the opposite side of where the vehicle crashed into. Now, that's a very tragic,
Very violent accident, yeah.
yes. And the reason why I show that is because the police and prosecution have both said, well, if your foot's stuck on the accelerator, it's showing intent. In that case, from Garfield, New Jersey, the Garfield Police Department in New Jersey released a statement that went along with that video. It said that the female driver suffered a medical episode where she loses control of her vehicle that resulted in sudden and unattended acceleration, which caused damage that we saw there in the video. We don't see what she's doing inside of the car. Fortunately, it was during the daytime where there were multiple witnesses, and they were able to help her, and she was transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. But to say that it can't happen or it's just a convenient excuse is not appropriate. It really shows that these type of things can and do happen. So in lack of an in-car video where we would actually see what Mackenzie was or was not doing, rule of law says every opportunity when you basically have a tie, if you will, between prosecution and the defense. If there's a tie, the tie always goes to the defendant because of the proof beyond a reasonable doubt criteria. It's not proof beyond reasonable assumption. It's not proof based upon, well, it seems to make sense.
Right.
No, you have to prove it every single step of the way.
And they did not prove it here.
No, they did not. Did
So,
they manage to get
Eric,
a conviction? Yes.
where
Is it
does
right?
this stand as what avenues are being taken to try to overturn this miscarriage of justice
Mhm.
so that Mackenzie can be free?
So Mackenzie, first of all, has new counsel. The counsel that represented her at trial is no longer involved. Um, her new attorney is, lack of a better term, he's fighting like hell for her, and I love seeing that. He's putting in, even his first appeal brief, he put in more effort than Mackenzie's original attorney, in my opinion. He has cited case law, both state and federal case law, as well as constitutional law. One of the things in Ohio is what they call I think it's called the Layman Doctrine, and it is involving two cases: Layman v. Hanum and Roman v. Estate of Gobo. These are two Ohio Supreme Court cases that address sudden and unexpected medical emergencies while operating a motor vehicle. And in those cases, if it can be shown within reasonable standard that a person may have suffered a sudden and unexpected medical emergency, and that's the key thing, sudden and unexpected. What that means is if you go to your physician for some kind of ailment and he or she prescribes you medication, and that medication on that bottle says, do not operate vehicles or heavy machinery after taking this medication until you know how it's going to affect you. If this is the first time you've ever taken it, you take two like you're supposed to. You go to say, hey, I need a pizza. and you go to get pizza, and on your way back, you smash into somebody, that's not sudden and unexpected. You should have known better.
Right.
In Mackenzie's case, seizures are very, very hard to diagnose, very, very hard to anticipate. Usually, some people only have a few seconds. I myself, I work currently in corporate security, and I have dealt with people who have seizures. One person I know of, he could be having a conversation just like we are, and all of a sudden, he'll be on the floor having a seizure. Absolutely zero warning. Other folks, they will see a precursor. They'll be like, okay, something's not right. I'm going to go ahead and sit down on the floor. And then all of a sudden their seizure will begin probably anywhere between 20 to 40 seconds after sitting down, because they can tell by an aura or some kind of other trigger. And that's a thing here is with Mackenzie, by the way, back to when she was pulled out of the vehicle, she only had an 82% pulse oxygen saturation level. So her blood oxygen saturation level was at 82%.
Yeah, that's low.
For those who don't know what that means, 82% doesn't sound too bad. That's like a C grade in school, right? Not when it comes to
Yeah, anything below 95% is a problem.
it is, and anything below 85 is considered life-threatening. It's called apoxia, which is just a medical term for oxygen starvation of the body.
Yeah, and I can speak to this
So,
personally because that's exactly what happened to me about 15, 20 years ago in a sleep study, where they ended the sleep study because my oxygen saturation level got so dangerously low
mhm.
that they realized that not only did I have sleep apnea, but I had such a severe case of it. Basically, the doctor told me that I cheated death every night. Every morning I woke up, I cheated death. So yeah, it's
That's
a very, very serious situation when your blood oxygen level gets that low.
mhm. And when you factor in the injuries that she sustained, the pulse oxygen saturation level, she also had a very high blood pressure at the time. And the reason why is because her body is trying to fight for itself. It's trying to stay alive. When they finally got her into the back of the ambulance and they could get supplemental oxygen on her, they could, get an IV ready, things of that nature. That's when the body will start to come around and start to stabilize, and uh, physiology can improve. Now, they did say at trial they did have a doctor and they did have the paramedic that attended to Mackenzie say, "Did you see any signs of stroke or seizure, things of that nature?" And of course, neither one of them said, "No, I did not see any signs of stroke or seizure." Well, there's a reason for that. The crash happened at 5:35 a.m. By the time the first paramedic was actually able to examine Mackenzie and get that pulse oxygen reading, over 70 minutes had passed. 70 minutes had passed.
Yeah.
And seizures, just even if you take like one of the longest ones that you can think of, where even it is a 5-minute seizure, which is considered very, very dangerous, there's still plenty of time before the police actually even got there. So it's entirely possible that she could have had a seizure, even had the convulsions, and then it was in the post seizure recovery time frame by the time the police cars are just rolling up to the
Yeah.
scene.
Eric, I have to ask you a question,
Hmm.
because I haven't seen this addressed anywhere. So, uh, because of the long time that it took for the police to discover this and respond to this, is there any possibility? And I'm asking this question out of ignorance because I don't know
Hmm.
the answer. Is there any possibility that either Davion or Dominic could have survived, or were they both presumably killed instantly?
So the injuries, from my understanding, because being a civilian and not in the certain way that laws are written in Ohio, where certain patient confidentiality is kept, even if it's an individual who's deceased. I did ask for that information. I did receive uh, the information of the call sheet and the report. Unfortunately, a lot of it is blacked out. It
Yeah.
has the date, it has the time, it has his name, but as far as all the other medical data, it was blacked out. But based upon the testimony that was given, Dominic had severe trauma. And as someone who's been in the medical field before, with an emergency medical responder certification, it is an injuries that were considered inconsistent with life. So that's the most delicate way I can put it. I don't
Yeah.
want to be. I'm trying to be sensitive to the families.
No, and I
And
understand that. I do. This is it's not being insensitive to the families. I mean, recently I had on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tony Montalto.
no, I'm not.
Okay, his daughter Gina, his 14-year-old daughter Gina, was one of the victims in the Parkland school
Okay.
shooting. Yeah, I recently did an interview with him. And one of the things that we talked about was the police response, the ineptness of the police response and the medical response. And it was some 40 minutes after the end of the event, the shooting, before emergency medical personnel went in there. Well, there were five, 4 or 5, probably just 4, because his own daughter Gina was taken to the hospital, but a lot of people believe that was mistaken, that she was in fact actually deceased, and someone thought that they registered vital signs, but in fact they didn't. But the other victims, the other 4 victims, there's a possibility, that they could have survived. When they died, being transported to the hospital.
Hmm.
So, that response is a very vital thing. Now you addressed it with regard to Dominic, but what about Davion?
Davion, when they initially checked for him, apparently he did have a pulse. Um, and they requested 2 medical helicopters be sent. That is documented. Whether he had a pulse while still in the vehicle and the pulse faded before transport could arrive, or if it was a false, indication,
Just like what happened to Gina. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
So I know that Davian was the first one to be pulled out because they did at at one time did believe he had a pulse. Um, and so they were working their hardest. The downside from this case, well, there's many downsides. We have 2 people that unfortunately lost their lives, and another person is currently incarcerated, and I don't think she should be. Um, one of the downsides is what I call medical ignorance on part of the police and the prosecution. Um, they didn't speak to her neurologist. They didn't speak to any neurologist about this case. As an investigator, these are things that you're supposed to go in and look at and say, "Hey, doc, I see you're a neurologist.
Yeah.
I have this case. My person of interest, because I don't want to use the term suspect at that time because they're not under arrest, but my person of interest has this medical condition. Could this have played an active role in this type of a crash? And if so, how?" That type of thing. But he never even addressed that.
And it almost seems like they weren't interested in
E- exactly. It didn't seem like they were very interested at all, and which is unfortunate. Another question that always comes up is, well, why did she drive down Progress Drive? It makes no sense.
Yeah,
Um,
I've already heard
sh-
that one refuted. That and when you look at the map,
mhm,
let's pull that up again, folks. This one, when I hear this argument, this is just idiocy.
mhm. So they said, well, why did she drive down this way? She doesn't live down this road. Um, well, you're right. It's an industrial parkway.
But it's a
However,
logical shortcut.
yep. So, and there is, in addition to going home, there were in the investigation 2 addresses that were provided. Um, one address is 22628 Westwood Drive, which is a friend of Mackenzie's.
Right? Which is down here.
Correct.
This
And
is Westwood Drive.
the other one is um, at the corner of Westwood Drive and I believe Pioneer Trail or Pioneer Road. So you might want to zoom in on where it says 22237 roadway, I think it is. So down by Westwood Drive, that a little bit further down where Kurt's Brothers Landscaping Supply, if you can zoom in that area.
I'm looking.
Yep. So Prospect Road, sorry, not Pioneer, but Prospect. So right at the corner of Prospect and Westwood Drive at the time of the crash, uh, right where it's right by the P there at the Prospect,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see a kind of a little icon there with an L-shaped building.
Yep.
That at the time of the crash was Allison Superfoods. 12 hours before the fatal crash, Mackenzie was talking to Allison, who's the owner and operator of that establishment at the time. From my understanding, it's now closed, and I'm not sure if they've gone out of business or.
Yeah. Let me interrupt you for
Yeah.
just a second.
Yep.
Can you see my cursor?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is the area that he's talking about, basically down here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if she's going, she's coming from Pearl Road. If she's going to here, it only makes logical sense that she would come down Progress, come down Alameda, and then onto Westwood, then to go all the way down Pearl Road, all the way down here, and take Westwood all the way up. I mean, that would be like twice as far.
Yep. And when the house that they were at prior to the crash belongs to the parents of a gentleman by the name of Paul, and I'm going to withhold his last name out of respect to him. But he was friends of all 3 of them. Paul said there wasn't any drug use going on. There was no drinking going on. Mackenzie and Dominic were seen cuddling on a couch prior to their departure because they stayed overnight. They were there for about 5 hours. They left from his house and went down Progress Drive. Well, when you take Progress Drive and the address of Westwood Drive, both the Mark address that I just mentioned a few moments ago, as well as Allison's Superfoods, and you plot them into Google Maps, what Google Maps tells you gives you a couple of different options. One of those options is to take Progress Drive to Alameda Drive and then turn right and head west on Westwood Drive. So it is one of the valid options presented to you as a direction of travel. If someone were to take these addresses and try to plot them into Google Maps right now, it will direct you to a different route. And the reason for that is the city of Strongsville, as we speak, is actually has Progress Drive closed down because they're doing road repair. So it's diverting people to go a different route. So we can't look it up that way right this time. But when I was looking at this last year and I typed it in both on my phone as well as here on my home computer. From a person who doesn't even live in the state, I have to rely on maps and say, okay, if I was going from point A to point B, and let's say hypothetically I was asked to join them, but I wanted to drive my own way and I didn't want to get separated. In case we got separated, I want to know how to get there. I would look it up. It literally told me to take Progress Drive to Alameda Drive because it was the shortest route, shortest and most direct route. One of the other routes was slower by 2 minutes. The other one's by about 5 minutes. And I'm like, okay,
So she
that
literally took the shortest route.
literally took the shortest route that Google told me to take, and I'm not even in the state. I've never been to Strongsville, Ohio.
Nor have I.
And I'm like, this is a little too weird, a little too coincidental. And then if you could pull up that map again, I'd appreciate it, because I want to show everybody here. So if you could zoom in on that where it says Virgil, if you could just kind of zoom in where it says Virgil there by Westwood Drive. So if the plan was to visit Mark and then also stop and pick up the produce that was requested about 12 hours earlier, the question now is, how would they get home? Well, if you move the map down following Progress Drive to where you come to Lund Road,
All right, am I going the right way?
yep, you're going the right way. Just keep going. And we can back out just a hair. We may have passed it already, but I just want to make sure. Okay. Yep. So see Lund Road right at the bottom there of the screen of the map?
Right here. Yeah.
Yep. So if you follow that all the way down and you hang a left, and then see where it
Right by the
says
Pearl Road.
where that kind of bluish area right where your cursor is,
Yeah.
that's the high school, which is roughly right across the street from where Dominic and Mackenzie were living. So if you think big picture here, they leave the house and they go to Paul's house for a post high school graduation get together. If you want to use the term party, fine. They stay there till 5:30. Okay, we got to get back. We didn't mean to stay so long. That type of thing. But we gotta go get stuff from Mark, and we also got to go grab our produce. So we follow the map that takes us down Progress Drive. We stop. We pick up our stuff at Progress Drive, or excuse me, at Prospect and Westwood Drive there at the store. We just simply head south and we make a left-hand turn, and then make another left-hand turn to pull in the driveway. That's the only thing intent that I can see here is we're running an errand before going home. That's how I view it.
And even if it was an out of the way road, to make the leap that, okay, I'm going to take this out of the way road that I don't normally take so I can crash a car into a building. That's quite a leap.
It is.
To come to that kind of a conclusion, to make that kind of a...
Yep, and that's why I go back to what we first started talking about, and that was Mr. Martin being a very questionable witness, because he doesn't bring us any confirmational proof. He doesn't bring us any type of audio or video recording of this alleged threat. He does not provide additional names of additional witnesses to the police.
So why do you think Mr. Martin did what he did? Why do you think that he did what he did?
It's possible that there may be an inappropriate relationship going on between him and Christine. That's just pure speculation. Do I have proof of that? No. Is it certainly a possibility? Yes. Additionally, when we talk about Christine Russo, with all due respect to her, this case should have never been argued or tried in the county, in Cuyahoga County, my opinion. And here's the reason why. Christine Russo is a former assistant prosecuting attorney for that county. She had to resign many, many years before this. So that's one disqualifier, in my opinion. Certainly reasonable to have a change of venue. 2, she is a former candidate for judge, and she lost the election. Again, another reasonable grounds for a change of venue. 3, she's currently a practicing defense attorney in the county, which means that she knows the local legal political scene and knows how people think and knows who to talk to, maybe pull in a few favors, that type of thing. Another reason why Christopher Martin, I feel, is not a good witness is because he does have access to 2 other witnesses, Christine Russo and Angelo Russo, who both spoke to the police. So it's reasonable that he would know what they told the police in conversations before he got there. He also had access to the text messages between Mackenzie and Christine. He also would have access to the text messages between Mackenzie and Dominic post-freeway incident. And that post-freeway incident text messages, the first words out of Dominic's mouth, so to speak, on the text message is an apology. He says he's sorry for what he did, which then lends credibility to Mackenzie's side of the story of this altercation on the freeway. And let me see if I can pull up the text message. I can show you right now.
Yeah, I've heard this before, that the evidence supports the fact that it was Dominic that was actually the aggressor in this relationship.
Mm-hmm. That is certainly very, very possible. And of course, my computer's being uncooperative at this moment. Let's see here if I can pull this up in a different manner.
So you said that Progress Drive is currently under construction?
That is correct.
Okay. When do they expect to finish that?
I don't know. It started in June, if I remember correctly. There was a posting on the Strongsville City Facebook page letting citizens know all of this. So, yeah, and my computer is not being cooperative. Hold on.
Yeah, because I was actually thinking of in a couple of months actually driving out there and looking at the location myself, but I guess that would not be a good idea now.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's a very short section of roadway, roughly maybe a quarter of a mile in length. It's involving drainage and sewer work and that type of thing. Okay, let's see here. Got the file I want, and see if I can share it here in a moment. Are we going to cooperate, computer?
All right.
It's
So
okay.
it's almost 2 a.m. here.
Yeah.
So why don't we plan on circling back and doing a part 2 on this? Because I don't want
I would love to, because there is. I've quoted some information here, and I would actually like to have everyone have access to view it.
Yeah, I just don't want to
Um,
make one video so long that it's unwatchable. So,
yes.
you understand that.
Hmm.
All right. So, we're gonna maybe the next week or so, me and Eric will get together off camera and we'll come up with a time to schedule for a part two. But this is a very concerning case, and the reason that you and I are interested in it is because of a principle of the rule of law that we enunciated, that person is innocent until proven guilty.
Yep.
Now, do I believe that that everything adds up and that she was completely responsible and everything? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they were doing things at this party, that maybe she was under influence
Hmm.
or something. There's so many things we don't know, but I don't believe the evidence points towards premeditated double murder. I
Oh,
just don't.
it doesn't. In fact, at the I'll leave you with this before we decide to disconnect. At the bind over hearing, after everything was all said and done, the judge ruled that the state did not have enough probable cause to charge Mackenzie with aggravated murder, which is premeditation murder. They said, you haven't proven that to us. You don't have enough probable cause to charge her with that. However, since there appears to be enough evidence to rule for criminal vehicular operation type charges, which would fall into that category of transferring her from juvenile court to adult court, that would qualify. So that's how she was transferred to adult court. It was only after the adult court and after the coroner had modified the causes of death from accidental to homicide did they reinstate the aggravated murder charges, even though a judge had said you don't have a case.
That and the fact that the counsel was so bad, and the fact that they bypassed the jury trial. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Eric, but it
Mhm.
it almost seems like the fix was in here.
I It's hard to doubt that statement, that sentiment. Yes, it.
There's just too many things that just don't add up here that seem like not mistakes, but deliberate chess moves
Mhm.
moving the case into a certain direction.
Yep. And
Yeah.
just final thoughts here. I keep hearing from time after time, oh, Mackenzie, she killed those two boys. Okay, first of all, we need to stop using the term boys. These were men. Mackenzie stands 5'4" and she weighs 90 pounds. Dominic and Davion were much larger than her, much more muscular than her. This is not a case of mommy Mackenzie having some weird, you know, postpartum depression and she put her two infant children into car
Da-
seats and crashed the car.
Davion was a football player. I mean,
He
come
was.
on.
Yeah, he was. And I think he was a running back. I could be wrong on that,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
believe you're right.
but which is a very powerful position to play.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the term boys, I understand, but let's be realistic. These were men, and they weren't even wearing the most basic safety apparatus, which has been all on the law books since I believe in Ohio since 1982. So seatbelts save lives, everyone. Bottom line, buckle up when you get in a car, regardless of what seating position you're in. That's my PSA, public safety announcement for the day. But yeah, it doesn't make sense, especially when
Yeah.
you have that.
So
And
why don't we just let's tentatively pencil in a week from today.
That works for me.
We'll pencil it in, and if we need to alter that, but we're going to try to come back a week from today at the same time
Hmm.
to continue this, because I think it's a very, very important story. So, Eric, thank you so much. You've given us a lot of great information. I can't wait till next week to finish this up.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me onto your program. Yeah, this is just one of those things that I was like, people are even asking me, how did you even become aware of this? Well, it was through a 30-second TikTok video where I was like, okay, this is kind of odd. And when they said this person, Mackenzie Shirilla, killed her boyfriend and one other man, and my first question was, what kind of firearm did she use? And then it was only after I did a deep dive, I'm like, she intentionally crashed her car? Where did you come up with that notion? You know,
Yeah,
that type of thing. And that's kind of how it evolved to me being here tonight. So,
yeah. All right.
so
Well, God bless you. I'll see you a week from today.
thank you, sir. You have a good night and stay safe, everybody. Remember, buckle up.
And get some sleep.
Yes.
All right. Bye.
Bye.